Hey, how you doing guys? ZDEyE here. So today I really wanted to talk about this one particular interesting article that I just recently came across with. So this is regarding an iPhone that can cost up to $900, $999, even more actually, but an Xbox Series X can't cost $600. Now, personally for me, I don't really see that. I actually think it can cost that much, and because again, we are talking about iPhone in here, and we're talking about as well the Xbox. Okay, you know what? Let's just get into this article. Let's see what this person, Paul Tassi, that's his name. Also, please do take a look at his article. Hopefully it's not as bad as I'm thinking. And yes, I did not yet read this article because I want to make my fresh first reaction and opinion. It's quite important, I personally think. Now, here's the why it is quite important to make this commentary, as does he actually, as he mentions in here in this article, the first paragraph he even writes, yesterday, and I quote, yesterday I wrote an article explaining that despite some recent cost estimates, Microsoft would be crazy to price an Xbox Series X, its next generation console, at $600 for its initial launch. This got some pushback, saying that for as much power as the thing is going to be putting out, which is on par with a solid gaming PC, that $600 is perfectly fine price and actually a steal. My opinion, I personally think if the Xbox Series X and the PlayStation 5 will cost $600, I'm totally down for it, because I already know what kind of power and graphical inputs and stuff that it can support. I personally see the future proving of these consoles. That's why $600 is a great deal. Again, personally for me, it is down to some of you guys, maybe that it is maybe quite expensive. $400 before it was on the PlayStation 4 first when it launched. Same goes for the PlayStation 4 Pro. But yes, it did take a few years until, I think it was 3 years after, yes that's right, 3 years after the launch of the PlayStation 4 to PlayStation 4 Pro, and was the same price. Well, obviously the longer you wait, the technology gets cheaper and more powerful they are going to be as well, right? So anyway, and I quote back again into the article. I also kept hearing the same argument over and over again, that this is an era where we are paying for $1,000 for the phones, yet somehow it's crazy to think a video game console can cost $600. Now, that's true. iPhones, especially, even phones, Galaxy phones, whatever, at this point they're even more powerful than ever, than compared to our current generations of consoles. I'm talking about the PlayStation 4, Xbox One, even the Xbox, what's it called? Xbox One X? What a dumb name, Jesus. Anyway, the other thing is the PlayStation 4 Pro. Even the phones are more powerful now. And even the phones are more powerful than lower end graphics of the computers and stuff. Not graphics, but in general. There are some computers that cannot hold up to that. That's insane. And of course, mostly what we're paying these so much money for these phones is especially because of the brand name. Apple, right? Samsung, Galaxy, whatever. They're extremely expensive brand. We're mostly paying most of the cash because of the brand name. And mind you, $1,000 for the iPhone example, more like $1,200, $1,300. They get even more expensive than that. It's ridiculous. And anyway, I've seen this comparison a lot. And it's also come up back when people were balking about the pricey mid-generation upgrade with the PlayStation 4 Pro and the Xbox One X. As the phones are updated with the new models far more often than once every 3-4 years. And yet I really don't like this comparison, that it ignores a lot of different things. Alright, let's see what you got. First of all, in 2019 a phone is quite literally essential of the existence of the human being. That's very true. Everyone on earth needs a phone, which is why companies can gouge for higher tier models. And this is especially true for the Apple, which gouges on, well, everything it sells, and that's just what they do. By comparison, a brand new high-end video game console is not must-have purchase the way a phone is. That is very true. It's actually including with the PC as well. Phones are even more mandatory than a PC. Secondly, the way most phones are purchased is different than the way a new video game console is bought. Even if a phone costs $1,000, you will almost never see someone plunk down $1,000 for it on the spot. Either the phone is added to your monthly bill and you will end up paying it off over the however number of years, or you will get a free or discounted phone if you agree to be locked in some sort of the pricey phone contract with a new or existing cell provider. While it's possible to break up something like the new Xbox into installments, for the most part, they are generally upfront purchases. That's very true as well. It's a good point actually. And finally, they are just fundamentally different industries, and you have to look at the broader context. As I said in my last piece, the video game industry has a history of not being kind to the overpriced consoles. It's been actually the case, particularly once that launched at $600 with the PlayStation 3. It's a good point. Which was ridiculed for that lofty price over a decade ago, and floundered initially as a result. On top of that, a huge reason Microsoft lost the console generation race to the Sony last time was because they opened with the Xbox One and Kinect at $500, while PlayStation 4 was only $400. Even if Sony decided it's time for an upgrade for the PlayStation 5 cost to $500 this time, Xbox Series X is not going to want to enter the $600 to repeat the exact same scenario. At the very least, they're going to want to price it $500 to match it, and then just pray Sony doesn't pull a rabbit out of its hat and somehow make a PlayStation 5 $400 again. Well, these are actually excellent points. That's a good write, actually. Good article, dude. We already knew this concept and idea, but he does a very well job of actually making an explanation of the comparison's sake. I actually like this piece. It's nicely written, dude. You can see that the adjustments for the inflation, something like a $600 PS3 is now more like $750 in today's dollars. But have you ever paid attention to the video game industry? It does not care one bit about the inflation, which is why we're paying $60 for a new game for eternity without a price increase. Thank God. And gamers would riot if we suddenly rocked up to $80 to $100 games, even if that makes sense given the rising of the cost of the development and the general principles of the economics. Well, if anything, you're seeing the price of some games even go down from that point at the AAA standards offering have to compete with the free-to-play titles. They're supported by the microtransactions or the DLCs or other post-launch paid content. So even if it makes some amount of sense for the consoles to cost $600 in 2019, the general public will still reject the console at that price and will put Microsoft in an extremely dangerous position, potentially undercutting by Sony and Nintendo. I'm not saying this is impossible. It's true that Microsoft may decide the Series X is worth that premium price point. And yet it would show that Microsoft is choosing to ignore its own history and is on its rivals. And if you have to make a very convincing case, that's both worth that much on its own and worth that much when compared to the PlayStation 5 as well. Great article, Paul Tassi. I agree. To a lot of points, I really do agree. One thing's for certain I want to mention. We cannot forget about the Project Lockhart. That's the other more lower end of the console that Xbox was rumored that may have. Mostly based that it may be diskless, it may be only streaming services as such. So that's how it may recuperate regarding of the cheaper console. But yes, there are problems on that front as well. How could you name it? How could you get, for example, families or parents get confused? For example, your child asks for, I want to get an Xbox, and you have no idea what one to get. And yet there's so many options at this point. It makes it very confusing for the people to buy an initial console, whatever you like to go with. Because your son or your daughter were expecting to see something different, but you ended up getting a completely different thing, right? As an example. So that's why maybe the Xbox or the Microsoft, I should probably rephrase that they are actually looking into things of actually selling two different types of consoles. One is the cheaper end, one at the more premium priced for $600, one for $400. That's an example. PlayStation 5 may be an easier approach to it. Let's say it's a $500 piece, but the Xbox Series X is a $600 piece. An example, obviously there's going to be some kind of compromises. Now we don't personally I don't think I do know even any of us know what kind of power limitations and what kind of power differences would it have, because it's been said again and again that the PlayStation 5 and the Xbox Series X is going to be similarities to the power wise. We do not know if the PlayStation 5 is more powerful or weaker compared to the Series X. And that's the thing, a lot of people raise these sort of questions, how much will it be worth? Personally, again, I do not mind buying a console the maximum price of $600. 600 euros, whatever, I am good with. But yes, I can definitely see a lot of other people are going to be quite mad about to see such a rise in the console that was the biggest complaints that the PlayStation 3 back in its era had the issues with, right? Because of these fronts, these steps, nobody really liked, and there was so much backlash, and that's why the console quite damn failed. Even though it did recuperate over the time, even though it did outpace the Xbox 360 back in its days, great English, back in its days anyway. But yes, I am very much looking forward to see the price point of these consoles. Would it be only maybe right, maybe let's go, what if it could be $550, right? $50 less. In some people's opinions, it's a done deal, because it's $50 less than compared to Xbox Series X. It could cost $600 as an example. Okay, I'm getting a cheaper console because it's only $50 less. I'm gonna get that one as an example. But personally, if both of these consoles are going to be ending up at $600, I'm good with it. But I can definitely see a lot of you guys may not be very happy with that choice as well. And still, to be honest with you, I'll be real. I don't see these two consoles being at $600 prices. The maximum I can only see is $500. That's the maximum price point. I don't see them both being at $600. I really don't. The minimum obviously is going to be $400, but the maximum again I think is $500. And personally, to be honest with you all, I think both of these consoles are going to be $500, both of them. That's what I think. Alright, well then, hopefully that was entertaining to listen through. That was a great piece. I will leave down links below in the description about this article. Make sure to check him out, the writer of course. Thank you so much for watching. Like and subscribe. See you guys all later, and yeah, have a good one guys.